Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming to learn more about the importance of play and how it affects our kiddos. I am Jennifer Ruckner, and as Jan mentioned, I am the owner and one of the speech therapists at Tots to Teens Therapy Services. Just a little bit about us, and then I'll get right into it. We are pediatric speech therapy, OT, occupational therapy, and PT, physical therapy for pediatrics, birth all the way up through 21. We do a lot of early intervention. So a lot of what we're going to be talking about comes from that background that I have in early intervention. And we also are in Stafford County as well as Prince William County. So today, the focus is on play. And why is play so important for our children? During COVID, we've seen a lot of reasons why play is important for our children. There are several factors that play really influences for children. Play is our brain's favorite way of learning. So why would we not take what we can do that we enjoy and then create learning opportunities at the same time? And play does that. It helps us with teaching children decision making, doing some of those higher level skills in decision making are really important for them. Knowing which objects go into what holes, and with our little shape sorters and things like that. Social emotional skills are addressed a lot in play when they are with peers or siblings. This is where they learn those skills for sharing and for cooperative play and learning how to work together on different tasks. Language development can be pretty much with anything. As a speech pathologist, I always say that I can make a language activity out of anything you hand to me, because pretty much anything you do, we can develop language skills, vocabulary, requesting, just all kinds of things that we can do. Higher level thinking skills. So being able to problem solve through different tasks or play skills that they're doing is really important. Communication. How do they communicate during play? Are we seeing some of those play skills with symbolic play where they're pretending to be like mom in the kitchen, or dad doing, working on something and fixing things around the house? Those communication skills come out a lot during play. Listening skills, trying to problem solve with, listening to other people, but also, there are different toys that help us to listen to animal sounds or help us to figure out by different sounds. I have an example that I'm going to give in a little bit that's of a house. And this little house basically has different doorbells with different numbers and things like that. And so being able to know which one goes with which. So working on listening skills. Reading skills, a lot of those pre-readiness reading skills come from the things that we do with books ahead of time. Not necessarily reading every single page or every single word on every single page, but just, seeing that we start at the beginning on the title page of a book, and then how we turn the pages going left, turning the pages to the left and reading left to right, things like that. Those are all those pre-reading readiness skills that are addressed during play. Math skills. There are so many ways that we use math every day, counting, and sometimes it's just number recognition. being able to scoop and pour and measure and things like that while we're cooking. And so those are all ways that we use these skills. And all of these can be addressed during play. So why does play matter? Well, because those first 5 years of life are the most critical. The first 2 years, they're like a little sponge, like sucking up all that critical thinking, and all of that brain is really soaking in everything that they're learning in their environment around them. So it is really, really important that we hone in on this first 5 years of life to really encourage a lot of learning in a natural way. Without our play and communication, things do take us longer to learn. We do see longer effects of not having that play as a piece of the way that our children interact with each other. It also could have long-term effects. I just attended a workshop yesterday addressing trauma in the brain and how much not being exposed to certain things in a young child's life can affect them longer term with their mental health and overall learning. By not moving around and playing, it can also have a longer term effect on their physical health as well, because they're not getting those gross motor skills that they need to be getting by climbing and playing and swinging and all of those things that they would do and learn. So this is kind of one of those statistics that is really surprising. Roughly 80% of the brain development is completed by age 3. And by 5, 90% is developed. So we, as I said a minute ago, we really need to hone in on this time period when that brain is so pliable and it's wanting to soak up all of that information so that we can give our children the benefits of learning and growing as much as we can in those first 5 years. I like this saying by Heather Shoemaker, play is precious. It builds brain pathways for thinking, creativity, flexibility, empathy, and many other lifelong skills. So as we were seeing on the previous slide, these play skills that we're exposing our children to and building those brain pathways are very, very important, because they will have lifelong effects if our children aren't learning these skills and aren't learning how to interact with each other, how to be more creative, how to think outside of it just being presented to you and just do it. How do we make that happen? Some other positive effects that we see from play is that, as I said, the long-term effects do bleed into those adult skills that we need for them to learn: how to be a leader, how to work as a team, how to be creative. Those are very important skills, as you all know, as adults, that we need to have as we are growing and as we are getting older. If we don't have good teamwork, it's going to affect us, obviously, in the job that we're doing. If we don't think outside the box in our jobs, a lot of times we're stagnant and then we're not able to advance in our jobs. So these are skills that we're teaching our children through play early on that's going to help them as they become adults. Also, those social emotional skills that we talked about earlier are extremely important for our children as they are getting ready to enter school age. This is how they're going to interact with each other, how they're going to have friends, how they're going to learn how to share together or work together. And these are things that they will learn during play with peers and siblings. We have lots and lots of studies out there that show that play directly relates to that cognitive development. Um, as we just talked about, that the reason for this is because that brain is absorbing and it's completing that brain development by age 5, 90% of it. Not that we can't learn other skills after age 5, but that's when the biggest bulk of what we're doing and our brain is developing is happening in those first 5 years. And then, like I said a minute ago, the play does contribute to creating stronger bodies and healthier bodies because we're moving around. Just like as adults, it's important for us to exercise and to get out there and do things. This is what kids do, but they do it in a really fun way, and we need to encourage that. So some factors that we have to consider when we're looking at the impact of play. Poverty is a very big factor. A lot of it has to do with exposure, being able to be exposed to situations where they have maybe the toys to use to learn how to do this, or maybe it's that they're not around other peers their own age, or mom might be a single mom or dad might be a single dad, and so they're having to work and they don't have the ability or the time to sit down and play with them. So poverty has been a big factor that has been related to play, but also to brain development as well. Lack of interaction. This goes back to what I was just saying. If they aren't being exposed to maybe other peers or to other like a family member or another caretaker sitting down and playing with them. I know when my kids were little, I would try to, even when I was working, I would try to take time, might be at bedtime or it might be during bath time, but I would take that time to sit down and try to read to them or play with them, interact with them somehow during the day. Another impact on play would be appropriate toys. So toys do make a big difference, but it can go both ways. Appropriate toys, you have so many toys that it's overwhelming for the child. So they don't learn how to play with more than one type of toy because they don't know what to do with these toys. So it could be that they're overwhelmed with how many, or the opposite is true, that they don't have anything to play with. There aren't any toys around. I have worked with early intervention for about 17 years and gone into the home. So I've seen some houses that, are on one side of that spectrum. And then I've seen the ones that I go in and there are no toys. So I'm going to give you some ideas later about what do you do in those situations if you come across someone or you find out that someone doesn't have that ability to purchase toys. Hurried lifestyles is a big impact on us. We have seen a little bit of this shift just because of COVID, and a lot of our activities and things like that did get put on pause for a while. However, we still are busy people. We still have both parents working a lot of times, and we have multiple siblings of the children, and so we're running here, there, and everywhere, taekwondo, gymnastics, soccer, whatever it might be. And that does impact just having the time to sit down and just play and just to be a kid. So those do impact the play as well. Changes in family structure. So, maybe you had a 2-parent household and there's a divorce, or perhaps, grandma has to move in with the family. It could be changes in that. Or it could be something like, a new sibling was added to the family. And so mom is having to spend a lot more time, or dad has to spend a lot more time with the new sibling, and so not being able to sit and play as much with the older ones. There is a lot of attention right now, especially in our preschool system, in different preschool settings, that, academics and enrichment activities are really pushed strongly. There's nothing wrong with that. I just want to make it clear that those are great things. Like we were talking about, there's a lot of ways that we can incorporate those math skills and those listening skills and those reading skills. But we also need to incorporate play as well into those preschool settings, because like we said, that creates so many more opportunities for children to learn how to interact and how to develop some of those adult skills that we're looking for in the future. So some implications for reducing playtime. What we have found through different studies, that when we reduce playtime, we do see that there is academic learning decreases more so in boys than in girls. My personal thought process behind this and why we see this is because boys are naturally, not all the time, but most of the time, boys are more gross motor active than girls are. So if they're not able to get out and play on the playground, or they're not able to have recess, that will impact them for those learning opportunities. It's really important for us to be able to, have those times to kind of de-stress a little bit and reduce, and get out and just have fun for a little bit, so that we can come back and regroup and go back to our learning. And we have seen that in our own therapy as well, when we take time to let them go swing for a little bit, or just to play for a few minutes, that it does kind of re-anchor them so that they're ready to start learning a little bit more. We've also seen that decreases in creative play. It does affect the ability for a child to store new information. So creative play can be considered symbolic play. And so when they're, having to problem solve and think through processes and things like that, it opens up some new neural pathways that help them to be able to store new information when they are given new information. So this is really critical for our kids while they are having those big bursts of brain development and brain growth. As we talked about a minute ago, many of our kids are overscheduled. And I wish that I could say that that was different for my children when they were growing up, but it really wasn't. I was a working mom. My husband was working full time as well. And, having 3 kids with many activities, we do find ourselves many times overscheduled. But as a direct result of that, even though what we think is a great idea and we're doing the very best for our kids, a lot of times what has been shown through different studies is that it increases stress and anxiety through kiddos. And that might be reflective through some of what we see academically for them at school as well. So, sometimes when we're working with kiddos in our practice, sometimes we do mention, hey, do you think that we should reduce therapy maybe a day or two so that they can just be a kid and just have some fun at home? So sometimes that might be what we try to see if that helps with some of their development and learning as well. So I wanted to put this up here just so that we could talk a little bit about the stages of play, because it is really important that when we are playing with children, that we do keep these in mind and have realistic expectations of what they should be doing at what stage. Not that everybody's going to fall exactly in these age ranges, but it gives us a good gauge of, what to expect. And I'm going to start with the spectator overlooker. So solid, well, actually, I will rephrase that. I'm going to go up one at the solitary play. So this is what we see with our little bitties when they're starting to develop, and they are 0 to 2, and they like to play alone. And they might, you know, during this stage, they really like just emptying things out and then putting them back in, and emptying them out and putting them back in. There's a lot of repetition and play like that, rather than a lot of really involved play. And then you get to when they turn 2, we get to what's called the spectator overlooker behavior. And that is where the child will not only be playing on their own, but then they start kind of watching the other kids around them and kind of see what they're doing. And, they might try to, do the same thing, or maybe they won't, but they're just kind of keeping an eye on what else is going on in their environment. And then when they get over 2, we start seeing them do a little bit more parallel play, which is then they really do start, they might both have cars and they're not playing together, but they will play next to each other. They'll be beside one another. Or maybe one of them has farm animals and somebody else has, like a house or something like that. But they're playing next to one another and playing near one another. And then we get to 3 and 4-year-olds, and we're looking at more associate play. And this is where kiddos start to learn some of those sharing skills. Keep in mind, they're not going to be 100% great at it yet, but this is where they start to do that interacting together, learning how to, Johnny wants what I have, so I'm going to hold on to it. I'm going to be a little cautious. But then when I want something, I'm going to say mine or my turn or something like that to indicate that, I want that. This can be also where they are, playing and doing things together, but maybe not the exact same thing. So a little bit of cooperation, but not full on sharing and doing cooperative play together, because that's going to develop later on. That's going to be in those 4 to sometimes up to 8-year-olds where they're working on cooperative play. That's where they're really sharing and playing together, and they're interacting and they're using the same toys. And there's just a lot of learning a lot of those social emotional skills that we were discussing earlier. And this is where we're going to see that. A lot of times, one of the biggest, I would say, concerns that parents have in this preschool age period is at 2, I've had so many of my parents say, they just won't play and share with others. And I say, that's okay, because they're not quite ready for that yet. All we have to do is model those behaviors and show them what we're supposed to do, and talk them through it. And so that's really important to keep in mind that, we do have to be realistic about where a child is and where their play skills are. So when it comes to our caregivers, what role do they have in play? So, the biggest thing is that we as caregivers participate in the play, and that we get down on their level and we play with them. And the reason why this is so important, and it really doesn't matter what you're playing, it's just playing with them. And the reason this is important is to create that stronger relationship with kids. If this is your child, what you're telling your child is, hey, my mom or my dad or my grandma or whoever, they really are interested in me. They want to be down here with me, and they're going to try to get your attention, and you're going to see them trying to communicate more with you. And then what the advantage is, it's not just an advantage for the child, It's also an advantage for us as parents because what it tells us is more about our child and how to communicate with them and what's going to work better with them. It could be that with a less communicative child, it could be that we just need to get down on their level and just slow down our speech a little bit, or we don't use as many words when we're talking to them. And we slow ourselves down. Sometimes I know when I was in a hurry and trying to get my kids out the door, I'm giving them, 10 words at one time. And, that's not what they needed at that point. I needed to slow down, use shorter utterances, talk to them carefully. These are things that you learn during play. You learn what way is the most effective with communicating with your child. And then you also learn where are they? What's their level? What are they doing? How are they playing? And you learn how to play with them more effectively. So the question is, do toys and do the types of toys really matter? And the answer is yes, it does. It really does matter. The reason why it matters is because there are so many toys out there. So we have, more toys than we would ever know what to do with. So it is really important to kind of think through why we're buying this toy and why is it important. But then I'm going to talk about this in a second, is also not only toys, but what things do we have around the house on a regular basis that would be great for creating playtime. So I am going to stop my screen, stop my share real quick, because I want to show you some of the things that I love and toys and why these toys might be important. So we were talking about the importance of books, and that you don't have to necessarily read every single word in a book. In fact, sometimes my favorite books are ones like this that are just super short, and there's not a whole lot in there, but there's so many things that we can do with them. And we can do it on our child's level, depending on whatever that is. So for this one, the thing that I really like about this one is you're working on colors. You're working on where the actual clothing goes on the animal. And oh no, oops, kids love this book because it's silly. You can be silly with them and have a good time with them and talk about how, where does that hat go? It doesn't go on our feet. Where does it go? And so you can make a whole fun time out of this book, and it's really silly. And you can talk about that silly turkey and all the silly things that he does. But it's very brief. But I use this book from itty bitties all the way up into early elementary school and talk about what makes it funny and why, oh my goodness, this is so ridiculous. And, really work on a lot of different skills at the same time with books. So, just look at your books and how can you use those and what ways can you adapt those a little bit other than just reading the words on the pages. For a while, we had I think it's called the Bullseye bin that's at Target. And so there were all kinds of little felt books that were there. And this one's the Five Little Monkeys, like the Five Little Monkey song, singing books. Those are all great ways to interact and play with your children. This one in particular had cute little monkeys in here that you could take out and put in the bed. And then you could make them jump on the bed. I do that a lot. You've got your bed over here, and you can sing the song and they're jumping on the bed, or the child can do it. So, just fun little things that you can find. And this was, like I said, it was in the Bullseye bin at Target. So, it was $3, something like that. But it was such a great find because we can use this, talk about the different things that the monkeys are doing. And then, oh no, he bumped his head. And we can do different things on the monkey. We can put a bow on. There were glasses we could put on. And then, oh no, the doctor had to come. You can do some pretend play. You've got a stethoscope in here, and there was a band-aid in here. And so we can pretend play. Oh no, that monkey got hurt. We need to put a band-aid on that forehead, things like that. But you're able to use books in so many different ways that are going to just increase not only their language skills, but their cognitive skills and some problem solving. But you're doing it in such a fun way that they don't even realize that they're actually playing and having to work at the same time. I love puzzles. I love wooden puzzles, especially. I have this one's a pretty simple puzzle. The thing that I like about this, it's color matching. You have to have some of your visual skills so that they can figure out how to match that shape with the actual puzzle piece. You can work on animals and what the animals are. And I also, if you're having trouble with kiddos that, they don't answer questions yet, you can give choices. Oh, look, I've got a sheep and a frog. Which one would you like? And then they can tell you sheep, and you can, oh, let's put it in, and they find where it goes. So you're working on all kinds of different skills in the context of just having a good time. I had talked a minute ago about this little house that makes noises and things like this. I don't know if anybody has this little house, but it has keys that have a number on them that coordinate with the number on here, math skills. And then you've got the key and you put it in the lock, and that works on some of those fine motor skills, the putting it in, using wrist rotation to open it. And then when you open the door, you could have like a little block or something hiding in here. Oh, we're going to close it. Oh, object permanence, working on, oh, is there something in there? Let's look, so you're working on those cognitive skills. So with one toy, we worked on so many developmental skills that are good for our children, but we did it in a fun way that they're enjoying. And as you can see, this one's great because you have 4 different opportunities to try 4 different skills at the same time. So that is something that I really like to use. But this is something that most of you guys probably had for little ones at home, those little the pop links that you put together. And I like this one because this one was different bugs. So you can, work on those fine motor skills of pulling them apart, pushing them on. But then at the same time, once you finish that, you can talk about the different bugs that you see here. And we can pretend play. And, some of them can fly, and some of them will crawl on the ground and things like that. So you're working on all kinds of different things with just this one little toy. And then obviously with this one I like a lot because it's got string beads. So you're working on that fine motor to string the beads together, and you're putting cars and things around town on there. So you can talk about the different things that they see, or make the different noises of the different vehicles that are there. And then like same with what we did with the pop beads, you can use those different little blocks and things to then use those as a way to pretend play and create a little scene and do some of that creative play that we were talking about earlier. So I'm going to transition because I said that, not only do we have the ability to, go out and buy toys and things like that, but sometimes there are so many things around our house that we can use that are going to be just as beneficial as a store-bought toy. So some of the things that I really like are your basic straw, just having straws around that you can take to the bathtub and you can blow bubbles. And they're working on, and they could be a motor boat, or they could, just blow the bubbles and then pop the bubbles, whatever it might be. Something really simple. Or you can take the straw and you can take a little bit of dishwashing detergent with some food coloring, and you can do a blow art paper, do a little art project on paper. Or you can, you know, do something on a plate, and you can blow it around. And so you're working on some of those oral motor skills that are going to help them with some of the sounds that they're saying, but you're also working on breast support, which is super important for everything they do with playing and whatnot. But you're doing it in a fun way, and they're learning how to just play. Something else that I really like, and this is what everybody has around their houses: boxes and little canisters. These make the best blocks, and you can just use them to stack. You can use them to make a house or a silo, or whatever you want to do. And you can incorporate, let's say you're making a farm with the blocks that you have, and you've got a couple of farm animals around. Well, you can incorporate anything you have around your house and just create opportunities for your kiddos, and they don't have to cost anything. Boxes are, no matter if they're boxes for cereal or boxes that come from Amazon or whatever, those are the best play toy. My kids, when they were younger, would rather have a big box that came in the mail than they would some of the toys that we spent money on, because they could make a fort, or they could they made like wagons out of it, and we would push them around the house and things like that. So sometimes the things that we've got every day around our house are going to be the best things to create some of that imaginative play. That wasn't the purpose of them, was to be toys, but it gives that creativity piece that we were talking about that's so important for them. We also, I love laundry baskets. To me, that is one of those tools that's a lot of fun, and I can work on all kinds of different things. We can work on where the child gets in the laundry basket, and it's a car, and he can tell me, or she can tell me, that she wants to go fast, or she wants to go slow, or she wants to go in a circle, or whatever. But there's so many opportunities for that. But then, let's say from the gross motor standpoint, we want them to work on some of those big motor skills. What could we do? Well, you can put maybe some stuffed animals in the basket, and then they get to push it around. Or maybe you put something that's a little bit heavier in the basket, so that it gives them a little resistance, so they have to work on some of those muscles, and they're going to go shopping, and we're going to put maybe some cans of food in there, so that they can go shopping at the grocery store and have some pretend play that way. So there's so many ways that we can use just our basic things at home to incorporate and include them in play, but yet it's not costing us anything. I also kids love to pretend to be like mom and dad in everything they do. And so, having them participate in just little simple tasks around the house, like emptying the dryer when they're pulling out clothes, pretending, probably if you have kids, you've seen them grab like a broom or something like that, and pretend to go behind mom and sweep behind her, because she's seen mom do that, or he's seen mom do that, or dad do that. So it's really important to involve them as much as we can in just the daily things that we're doing as well, because that's also teaching some of those play skills and that imaginative play for them. But it's giving it to them in a way that daily they'll be able to expand on it, and we can help them expand on that, so that it gives them more opportunities for creativity, more opportunities to learn how to imitate, and that can carry over in other ways. It's also important, to give them those outlets that we spoke about earlier with outdoor play, being able to go out and maybe just dig in the garden, or maybe it's, going to the park and being able to climb and build those gross motor muscles, so that for the physical side of things, that, it's great, and we're very focused on the cognitive and the developmental, mental acuity and things like that, but that physical, as you all know, is just as important, in giving them those outlets that they need. One of the things that we've noticed as a clinic is that our children, over COVID, they have not had the exposure that a lot of our children had previously. Either they're not able to go to daycare, or they're not able to go to preschool because they weren't open. Or it could have been because mom and dad needed to work from home, but they didn't feel comfortable with their child being at a facility. And so some of the things that we have noticed with COVID is that we have noticed a lot more anxiety. We've noticed a lot more we would consider OCD type tendencies, a lot of self-regulation difficulties with our little ones. And then we've also seen, from the speech aspect, we've also seen that there's a bigger delay with speech delays. We're seeing a lot more children right now because they didn't start speaking when their siblings did, who are a couple years older than they are. So we're addressing a lot of these things that we've noticed during COVID, and some of the correlations that we've also seen and have read about. When mom and dad are having to work, and this was a difficult time for everyone, sometimes instead of the children being able to be kids and be loud and play and rowdy and that kind of thing, they had to be quiet, and they had to sit in front of a screen, or in front of an iPad. And so we have seen, and the studies have indicated, that these are some of the difficulties that we're now seeing, the kind of after effects of some of the COVID related concerns. So, that's why our company decided to kind of reach out to different parent groups and to different preschools that were still open, and kind of reach out and talk about this, because play is so critical for our kids. And we felt like it was important, and because of the things that we personally were seeing, we wanted to make sure that we shared this information with our parents and our caregivers, so that we could give some support and say how important your job is as a parent, and how important your job is as a daycare worker or a preschool teacher, to give these kids all the advantages that we can through play and interaction with each other. And so I appreciate you guys coming today and allowing me to share about play and how important it is, and how the role of birth to 5 is so critical for our little ones. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer questions for you, but I do appreciate this time.
You can even turn on your mic and ask, or you can put them in the chat box. We have a quiet group today. I don't see any coming up. Jen, thank you.
Thank you
so much. I will send out a copy of the slides right? You will send them
Yes,
to me,
ma'am.
correct, Jen?
Yes, I
Yes,
will.
okay. And I will also send a link to the recording. I want to thank everybody for coming today. This was great information, Jen. I appreciate it. And I just want to mention that we hope to have our Circle of Support conference again this year in person. I'm working on getting a location so I can then get a keynote speaker and start planning the workshops, because without the date and the location, it's hard to do. So, oh, any advice for older siblings playing with younger siblings?
That's a really great question. I think that, the biggest thing is to make sure that because I love using, I love using older siblings as models for younger siblings. So my advice would be to kind of keep an eye on the older sibling, make sure that that model, and if there is something that needs to kind of be corrected, like if the older ones are having a hard time with sharing, just modeling, oh, I think it's so and so's turn to be able to do that. Do you think there's another toy that you could get for him? Or, let's trade off, or you've got a couple of minutes left with that. Just kind of modeling that behavior for them. And also praising those older siblings for when you do catch them doing some really good skills with those younger siblings. I feel like the more that we can catch them doing good things with their siblings, it's a motivator. I mean, I know if somebody tells me, hey, Jen, your hair looks really good today, I'm probably going to try to do my hair like this again, because I know that somebody thought it looked good. So I feel like that's the same with our families and kids as well. If we can encourage them through the good things we see them doing, and then when we do need to give them some models for the things we would like, or behaviors we'd like to see changed, it's a good motivator for them.
Okay, another question. There's a 5-year-old boy who's easily angered and only in school for 2 hours a day. What are some toys I can get for kids like him, older kids?
So for older kids, I really love playing games, board games. I think that it creates a lot of opportunities. And if anger is something that he has some difficulty with, this may be very helpful to teach turn taking. It might be good for teaching when he gets frustrated because he's not winning. That it creates a lot of good opportunities to communicate those things together and to give him some words to use in those situations, as opposed to the behaviors. Some other things that for a 5-year-old typically is, are there different kinds of building type kits, like, Legos, or maybe it could be something that's a calming type thing, like using kinetic sand. Those are really great. They get a lot of good input from using kinetic sand, and being able to calm their system. But you can also embed, like, hide things into the sand, and he's got to find them, and you talk about that. So a lot of those kinds of things, I would, that kind of, either you can create opportunities where you can help him work through some of that anger, or some activities where he can do them on his own, like the kinetic sand or the Legos or something like that.
Other questions? Those are 2 good ones. Okay, then. Thank you, Jen.
You're welcome. Thank you,
I'll be in
guys.
touch. Thank you so, so much. And Janice, you're welcome. So good to have everybody on here this morning, and have a great rest of the day and weekend, everybody. Thank you. I'm stopping recording now. Okay.